Kia ora, this program is brought to you by Wellington Access Radio. Wellington Access Radio, make your voice heard.
Welcome to the Blackhouse. You're in the house with Onkia, our social media superstar, and Leah, of course, and our special guest, who recently was in a play written by Estelle Chout and produced by Chinwe Okoma, called The Eternal Queers, about BIPOC LGBTQ icons, Carmen Rupe, Gary Wu, Stormy de la Vere, and Roger Stanley. And she's also the author and artist of her own anime book called Heavy is the Head. Can you see it? And it's available at all these places: Food Court, Unity, Graphics, Artie Bees. I'd like to welcome to the house Nani. Mahal. How are you?
Woo! Hello! Irashaimase. Thank you. Dozo.
Was that a good intro?
Oh, it was fantastic. That was absolutely wonderful.
Oh, cool. I just want to, because, we've had you in before, but yes, it never got out.
Yes.
So we're going to start over.
Round 2.
Yeah, okay.
Fight.
So, right. Fight. Can we start, first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your origins and how you ended up arriving on these fair islands.
Hello. My name is Nani Mahal. I am an artist, illustrator, and entertainer around Wellington. I got here a long time ago. We flew in from Hawaii, of all places, right? With my family about 21 years ago. And I have been here basically ever since, just trying to discover myself Wellington style.
Was it a random choice, or like
no?
What was the attraction?
My dad came here ages ago and he was like, "Oh my God, New Zealand's dope. Look at this farming culture. You guys are amazing." So he sent my brother here to go to school because my brother was like, "Okay, cool, let's do that." Okay. And then my brother had a baby, and then my mother was like, "All right, we're just packing our bags. I've got my first grandbaby. I'm gonna drop some suitcases on it."
Yeah.
Because my brother got sick, and she was just like, "Okay, look, if you have a baby, I'm coming."
Yeah.
And we were only supposed to be here 6 months, and this is the longest 6 months of my life.
Right. Right. Yeah. I've had that happen to me before. Taranaki does that to people. Did you know that?
No, thank you.
Like, it's full of people that never planned to be there.
Yeah.
And they just got there and just ended up staying there.
Yeah. No, Wellington's the same. It'll swallow you. And like, it's on one hand, you're like, oh yeah, any minute now I'll be moving to Paris. And then you go to Paris and somehow you're back in Wellington again. And you're like, how did that happen?
Gravitational pull.
Yeah, right? Like Wellington's gravitational pull.
So when did you start like doing anime and manga?
So I consider myself these days more of an artist entertainer. Anime and manga was what I grew up with. I grew up in Hawaii, and Hawaii has a huge Japanese population.
Right.
And so I just grew up on that stuff on TV. I mean, like, we had Toonami all across America, but for me, I grew up with like untranslated Sailor Moon and stuff people have never heard of, like Cutie Honey and just, some really vintage anime that even young Japanese people were like, I think I heard of that,
Right, yeah.
And so it wasn't anything special when I was growing up. All of us drew. All of us were just, kids draw kids cartoons. It's just that the kids cartoons I grew up on were equally, of Japanese persuasion.
Yeah, I've noticed like young kids of your generation, even here, were big on drawing anime.
Yeah, it was a hobby. It was like Pogs or whatever, like it was just the thing we did at that particular time. And it's just been weirdly persistent
Right.
as a hobby.
But how did you go from it being a hobby to actually, you've produced a book and...
So I am obsessive. So I basically, everyone else was doing it. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I could do it the best. And it was honestly just a matter of pride that I saw everyone doing all of this, drawing their favorite Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, card-captor characters. And I was like, I want to do that. And then I got really good at it. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
But I think that, for here I am on the Blackhouse, and the real answer is, but I was black. So it was like, what skills do I have? I turned around, I hit puberty, I hit young adulthood, and I'm like, what skills do I have? And this is the one thing that I can meaningfully corner the market in, is being a black girl who knows how to draw anime. How many of us do you think there are?
Well, I've got some questions about that, but they're coming from Eddie because he's like the anime fan.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing not many.
No, we are not non-existent.
Yeah.
But if you want somebody who speaks English and Japanese, who knows anime is more than its superficial self. So I'm talking I also like Japanese indie art house films, and I know about the sort of the history in terms of its commercialism and success internationally and Japan.
Yeah.
You're not going to find somebody else.
Right.
So I was just like, okay, cool. Come at the world uniquely if you can, and it will only be able to come to you for this.
Right.
So that was a skill I had, and I found it was exactly that. I made myself known as an anime artist, and there was almost, especially 20 years ago, there was nobody else. Speaks English, Japanese, nobody else.
So you're a fluent Japanese speaker as well?
少し日本語は喋ってます。はい。
Oh my god.
まだ勉強でも yeah.
Yeah.
So I do.
Now, I didn't know until somebody pointed it out to me that the Boondocks was anime.
Oh, yeah, no. Anime influence, there's a lot of arguments on what counts as an anime, of which I do have a personal opinion or a definition for that. But within the anime community and even outside of it, there's a lot of argument for what does count. If it's made outside of Japan, if it's made by black or white people, is it still an anime? The answer is anime is a brand.
Right.
It's a Japanese established brand of cartoons. And so if you fit within the brand so well that nobody even can recognize you as not, then probably, yeah. But, it's like once you start breaking brand image, you have new questions on your hands.
Well, would it be called something else besides anime or manga? Is it the style or is it the origin? How are they actually?
There's no monolithic definition. Lots of people argue this all the time.
Right.
I personally think of it as a brand, and I think of it as a brand you can either match or you do not match.
Right.
Part of matching that brand is coming from Japan or having at least a deep root within Japanese culture.
Yeah.
But especially in Japan itself, they would see it as an anime.
Right.
They might call it a cartoon, but a lot of them would see it as an anime.
Right. And Afro Samurai and Samurai Champloo, because I'm just going to go on to this question that I've gotten from Eddie. And okay, I'll just read it to you. How do you view the pretty deep relationship black folk and manga and anime industries have? And do you see yourself as a part of this tradition?
Absolutely. So that's a big question. A lot of us, especially in the black community and the youth community, connected with anime. But of course, at least initially, we didn't really see ourselves reflected in it. Except that really, really old anime, they had a wealth of diversity of different types of women, female representation. And actually, I mean, if you get down to Okinawa, we're still talking black people.
Okay.
Brown is brown, at least.
Yeah.
Definitely not black American, definitely not quite the black diaspora, but we're still talking brown people. So you would even see characters on screen that were being represented who were brown like you. And if you're young enough and you don't know the cultural context, you're just like, well, there's a brown person on screen running around being a cartoon character having superpowers.
Yeah.
And for me, there was nowhere else that was doing that.
Yeah.
And certainly not telling their stories that weren't, air quotes, black stories. Like, they were just having a time, having things happening to them, like fantasy adventure things. One of my favorite examples, some characters, Erd, who is a dark-skinned goddess in a old anime called Oh My Goddess. She just happens to have dark skin and be like kind of Middle Eastern themed.
Right.
I had never seen that. And we're not dealing with the fact that she's Middle Eastern. She's just a funny character.
Right, okay.
And I was really moved and influenced. Nadia from Nadia in the Blue Water, Blue Ocean? Dark-skinned character. She's great.
And this is all Japanese.
It's all Japanese
anime.
And they have dark skin. It's not about being a black African or coming from a slave history or anything. They're just having adventures, like beautiful fantasy adventures.
And I love the way that the anime stories go, because it's so contextually rich.
Yeah. Yes. And there's a whole bunch of anime that's like that, where it deals with a wealth of melanation. And it deals with a wealth of different types of stories, different types of feminism.
Yeah.
And to be honest, one of the reasons why I think that we really gravitate to it as a people, as a culture, is because anime and manga, if you really start to dig down, is almost the Wild West of storytelling. Anything goes.
Anything goes.
Anything goes, right down to like, oh, this black woman who's also a mermaid, who's the queen of space, is also, and you're just like, it gets like properly wild to the point where you absolutely will be able to, if you dig deep enough, find something that reflects you properly.
Yeah. I found the influence. The influence anime had on my kids was everybody wanted to have spiky hair and it had to be red. And my youngest said, I'm going to grow up to be Japanese.
Oh, well, there you go then. Good luck with that one, kid.
Yeah, good. He's still trying. I think he thinks if he concentrates hard enough, it might happen.
Well, to be honest, I think that between the two cultures, I think that the black diaspora, especially internationally, and Japanese hometown have a lot to offer one another. In terms of a sense of nationalism that comes from Japan, and the sense of cultural adaptation to the modern world that comes from being black diaspora. We always are forced to adapt.
Yeah.
Which almost means that we lose a sense of our past and our culture, except for what's important, because it comes with it because it has to. Whereas you have Japan, where that rapid fire need to adapt just isn't there. They have their culture and they protect it.
Yeah.
And I think that the communication between those 2 points of culture has been something that's very much influenced me, someone who grew up around a lot of Japanese culture, but not actually that much black culture initially. There's a term that I remember seeing another black girl who was raised in like Nagoya or some just like out of town place in Japan.
Yeah.
Originally, her family was from North Carolina. I cannot remember her name, and I'm really sad because I would love to promote her. And she sort of said that what she has is a black voice and a Japanese voice, and they have a conversation in her head.
Right.
And that's something that I really connected to. I was like, I grew up with Japanese and European and Hawaiian culture, but I never grew up with black culture until much later in my life. And so in a way, it's almost like I have like a little panel, ethnic panel in my head, which is like, later I learned I was Nigerian. So Nigerian comes to the table and it's like, well, let's represent this. You know? But the part of me who was raised around European, Hawaiian, Filipino, like they're like old voices, and they all have a discourse in my head whenever we're dealing with different things. And that has been something that I've absolutely been able to take forward. Whilst I identify myself as black and not Japanese, I do not disrespect the fact that Japanese was a huge part of my rearing.
A big influence.
Yeah, and it helps shape the way that I even approach being black. which I think has been, I don't know, like it took a moment, but like, you know, they work really well together in a way.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I will not say that you can then turn yourself into a Japanese person. Don't. You're black. Son, you're black. But like, let it inform you.
Yeah.
Like, we're all one at the end of the day.
I know that it really informs the way that he cooks food.
Yeah, yes.
He's learnt a lot of things of anime.
Shokugeki no Soma. I bet you he's watching that. That's literally everybody.
And all the cooking, and then he goes, yeah, and you do this and that. And I'm like, where are you learning this stuff? And he goes, I've seen it on this
There's
anime
a really
show.
popular anime show out right now called Shokugeki no Soma, or Food Wars.
Right.
And it swept over. I did the same thing. I couldn't cook toast before this anime came along. And it just glorified being a really good chef.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like that was another really huge thing that I think that people get from anime is that it will promote and glorify things that are culturally healthy.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes it'll be like tennis, or like Prince of Tennis, or Shokugeki no Soma, or Free, which is the one about swimming.
Right.
But yeah, there's just 101 good reasons to watch anime, and actually seeing yourself represented ethnically is weirdly one of them, despite what you might think.
Well, we're going to go to a short break right now because I want to play this track. It's a local Wellington producer, I want you to bookmark where we are though. A local Wellington producer, ex-Massey commercial music graduate. He's worked with such artists as 1-4 and Sampa the Great in Australia. He got his interest peaked in his mid-teens in Perth, Western Australia. He often works with his brother I Am Solo in Sydney, collaborating on productions. He's also a rapper and R&B singer with a very unique tone. He's heavily focused on the production side just for the minute. So he's just done this remix of Aaliyah's Rock the Boat, and we're just going to play that for now. Sounds by Somewhere. With his remix of Aaliyah's Rock the Boat. And we're back on the Blackhouse at 106.1 FM. And I'm here with Nani Mahal, and we're talking about her amazing talent in anime and manga. And I've got more questions for you from our manga fan down in Cromwell. All right, so how do you view the ongoing relationship between manga, anime, and black cultures in the works like Boondocks and Afro Samurai and Samurai Champloo being some of the most well-known? And how do you place your work in relation to that tradition? And I might as well chuck in the second one. And as a black creator, but also as an anime fan, do you navigate the ways in which manga and anime can be an anti-black medium, especially in the ways in which art styles for black and black presenting characters can drift into racial stereotypes? Now, you've been saying about how much they have in common, but do you see that ever happening?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Are you joking me? I can name like 6 or 7 racist characters right now, of which I have mixed feelings for because they're funny and I like them, but also they're terrible and I shouldn't.
Okay. So, like, what is there any that you can name?
Oh, right now, Google, if you really want to be offended, Google Mari Project Echo. And she is literally she's just a man with pigtails, like a black man with pigtails. And she's just meant it's a sort of a terrible racist depiction of the lack of femininity within black women. Right. And it's offensive. And yet when I watch it,
there's a stereotype like that, lack of femininity.
Yeah. Like hyper macho or hypersexual is the way that we're often depicted. Right. If we're depicted poorly in anime, we are depicted as either stupid, hypersexual, or hypermasculine, regardless of the gender. Like, like women are depicted hypermasculine and men are even more hypermasculine. Right. So yes, it can be really bad, like offensively bad. Yeah. But I think that the thing is that whilst that may be true, I found that was true for almost all media types, and I found that there was a wealth of different types of stories being told of melanated people in anime, which is why I sort of still stand by it, I guess, as a global thing.
Right. Because I haven't seen any of the bad manga. I did watch a little bit of manga when I was at university. I found it really more interesting to watch manga when I'm doing my studies than anything else.
Oh, you and everyone. Literally.
Really? I thought that was kind of weird.
Oh, no. Like, famous. Okay, so here we are in 2021, and the predominant culture for watching anime is literally you were doing homework or doing your laundry, and like you've just got like some specifically inane comedy show or romance or action thriller going on in the background. Yeah. And that's like kind of the way that we consume it today. Right. When I was younger, it was actually that we would do it in groups. Like they were clubs, like school clubs kind of thing. Like you'd go play hockey, but for us introverts, we would go and watch anime and
the cards. I used to have cards.
Yeah. Oh, the whole frigging anime nerd culture was card games, and it was big group couch, and we'd just all watch this dumb anime together. Yeah. And that was how I was introduced to it, and probably why I kept drawing as the way that I did.
You go to Armageddon?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay, are you into the cosplay? Do you get dressed up as anime characters?
I do. I do actually have a small closet of costumes I've made myself.
So what are your anime cosplay characters?
The 2 that I've cosplayed, and I need to remake the first one, was Erd from Oh My Goddess, which I mentioned before, and Chun-Li, who I think
Chun-Li, is that the song by?
No, she's a Street Fighter really character. Nope, different person. She's a character from a fighting game called Street Fighter.
Okay, yeah. Of course.
Yep.
That's the only game I can play.
Right, the blue one who kicks. Yeah. The blue one with the legs.
Yeah.
The good legs.
Yeah.
But Armageddon was probably the beginning of me taking it seriously. I remember my first time preparing for an Armageddon, being like, "Oh, I've got to get all my prints ready." I spent way too much money. I spent way more on getting it all together than I'd made back at all.
Right. Well, you were selling things there?
Yes.
Okay. Were these posters or books or?
They were posters because I was still quite young. This was before book printing was as accessible as it is now.
Yeah.
But yes, very much so. And it was a really wonderful experience. I haven't done a local convention in a long time, but I went from there to doing it internationally. And I traveled all across the States and you know what I should straight up promote while I'm here? Blurred Con, or literally Black Nerd Con in the States.
Wow. Okay. Do they come internationally or they just stay there?
I was there. Where is it? It's not Baltimore. Baltimore is like Otakon or Comic-Con, but there are huge conventions in the States.
Yeah.
And even if you're doing it on a smaller scale, you make a decent amount of money there if you're good. And I have a lot of different people who make their entire living off of it. Right.
Mm-hmm. And they just sell their, so long as it's related to the whole manga anime scene, they can sell anything there.
Doesn't even really mean sometimes it's Western comics. I've had people there who are just writing books, you know?
Okay.
So it's just the sort of, the general themes are sci-fi fantasy.
Right.
Anime just happens to fall under that.
Yeah.
Is blurred and nerd and, let me paint for you going to BlurredCon USA. And the entire Wakanda tribe, I'm talking the whole crew doing the Masa tribe chant. And I'm just in it. I'm like, I don't even care if I'm dressed up. We're here for this. Masa! You know? And I just find myself going, I was home. I need to go back.
Yeah.
Where's my people at? Where these nerds be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like having a corn dog in one hand and like chanting Wakanda forever in the other. It was the most beautiful experience of my life.
That sounds amazing. I mean, what do you think of the chances of it coming to places like New Zealand or even Australia?
You know what? Those things are easier to start in New Zealand than they are anywhere. You literally just throw a little house con and then you will get people. Because people here are a mix of bored. Seriously
like big time,
bored and big time curious.
Yeah.
So if you were to start something like that, you could keep it going for as long as you can handle people.
I was a comic fan and my kids were very much into the anime thing and they used to enter those competitions.
Yeah.
I forget the chant now, but
Kamehameha.
That's the one.
You know what? I straight up won one of those. I won myself a Game Boy.
You could have been competing against Solo.
I won myself a Game Boy Advance back in 2000.
They were there.
Yeah,
I think they were. Is that the one that's on YouTube?
It might be. I don't want to look. I have not looked, and I almost don't want to now.
But they used to be so good. Do they still have them in the same place?
No, I don't think they do those anymore.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure that they don't, but I haven't seen one in a long time.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I still have that Game Boy Advance. I ain't throwing it out. That's my prize.
Well, I want to... Actually, no, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to another track because it's a natural sort of change of pace here. And this track is a collaboration. Now, this is a collaboration between Jamaica and its American diaspora. California-based singer Mindy K. Frost comes from the Jamaican migrant parents, and the Kingston-born Tessellated bring perhaps the chillest dancehall tune that you've heard in a while. Mindy describes herself as super saturated in both Jamaican and LA culture, and their track Pine and Ginger very much demonstrates that. And we're just going to go into it right now.
Guess that you just know one. Another soul is broken. It's always kind of funny how you find out how they're coping. So he asked me how I'm coping, and I asked him if he noticed. I said, listen boy, I'm focused. I said, me I drink pine and ginger. And mommy feel wine pan a thing, I'm gonna play that. Me I drink pine and ginger. And mommy feel wine pan a thing, I'm gonna play that. And mom the rum and all the sorrow. And my feet drink away my sorrow. Guess I'm not care about tomorrow. I guess I'm not care about tomorrow. Me, I drink pine and ginger. And want me for wine, but nothing I'm gonna play that. And I drink pine and ginger. And want me for wine, but nothing I'm gonna play that. And after rum and out of sorrow. Guess I'm not drink away my sorrow. I guess I'm not care about tomorrow. I guess I'm not care about tomorrow.
She have the pine with the ginger. Spliff like time, girl, I get injured. Miss right wine, never you linger. Move quick like Jackie Chan ninja. When me in ya, me tell her if you wine pandy, wine pandy, wine pandy ting. Climb for the, climb for the, climb for the king. But all now me I sing, me I pray she no move from my drink. She a sip
pine and ginger. And want me for wine, but nothing I'm gonna play that. Me I drink pine and ginger. And want me for wine, but nothing I'm gonna play that. And after rum and out of sorrow. Guess I'm not drink away my sorrow. I guess I'm not care about tomorrow. I guess I'm not care about tomorrow. I'm off the butter, not a leaf. I'm off the butter, not a leaf. I'm off the butter, not a leaf. Put the fire to the split, smoke away for release. I'm off the butter, not a leaf. I'm off the butter, not a leaf. I'm off the butter, not a leaf. Put the fire to the split, smoke away for release. Me, I drink pine and ginger. And want me for wine, but nothing I'm gonna play that. Me, I drink pine and ginger. And want me for wine, but nothing I'm gonna play that. I'm after rum and out of sorrow. Guess I'm not drink away my sorrow. I guess I'm not care about tomorrow. I guess I'm not care about tomorrow.
she a sip pine and ginger. Me tell her if you wine pan the thing, but she no play that. She a sip pine and ginger. Me tell her if you wine pan the thing, but she no play that. She have the rum in the sorrow. She tell me I drink away my sorrows. She said me not care about tomorrow. I guess me not care about tomorrow.
I guess we not care about tomorrow. Everybody's coping, whether drinking, whether smoking, whether writing down a song, pen and paper to the open. I said everybody's coping, whether drinking, whether smoking, whether writing down a song, pen and paper to the open. I said everybody's coping, whether drinking, whether smoking, whether writing down a song, pen and paper to the open. Me, I drink pine and ginger.
And that's Wine and Ginger by who is it by? Mindy K. Frost and Tessellated. Wine and Ginger. I love that track. Yeah, I really like it. It's a good track. Yeah. So where are we? We are going to start talking about this book. Okay, I really like this book, Heavy as the Head. Now, this is your comic grimoire that archives human experience and emotions, particularly processing PTSD, depression and anxiety.
Very much so.
Yeah. Can you speak on your process that you took to channel your art for this purpose? You know, like what was challenging, what was easy?
Well, so I wrote a book. And we're here because I wrote a book.
Yep.
The book is called Heavy as the Head. And the long and short of it is that I did not intend to write this book. This book wrote me. It flowed through me because I had to write this book.
Right.
I was previously writing a fantasy adventure story for young adults.
Oh.
Yep. And about halfway through writing that young adult adventure series, my sister passed away, my big sister.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And I basically went from, trying very hard to push a mediocre comic book series to using comics to process a lot of what was going on in my head. It had been a very long time since I'd seen my big sister in person. We've been down here in New Zealand for the last 20 years, and at that point it was at least 15.
Since you had actually seen her?
Yeah.
Was she staying back in the States?
Yep.
Yeah.
But we kept in contact from basically like almost monthly. She was the person who would check in with me the most of all my family from the time that I got pregnant with my daughter. So she was a pillar for me. And losing her was probably one of the most painful things I've had to do. And it even took a long time to process how much it had hurt me.
Right.
Not just emotionally, but structurally.
Yeah.
It was like losing my legs. You know, first you're thinking, oh my God, I don't have legs. Then you're trying to walk and you're like, oh shit, I can't walk. And then you're like, okay, I can't walk. I can't run. I can't, you know, and you're just this cascade of all the things that have just been taken from you and the ways in which you will never be the same. And in a nutshell, I just found myself being washed over by grief and guilt for not having seen her in person. I had intended to see her in person. It's about 6 months before that had happened. I had also lost another friend who took his own life.
Yeah.
So I fell apart. In a nutshell, I fell apart. There was other things going on in my life, but it all crashed into itself in one huge, just, you know, dying swan moment from Swan Lake where I was just like, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm a first-time mother. I was married and my marriage was falling apart, you know, because my friend took his life. My friend circle was falling apart. I had just lost my sister. Everything just came down. And I was not okay. And even getting as far as to humble myself enough to acknowledge that I wasn't okay, that this had changed and overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
That was a huge process.
Yeah. And grief is one of those things. It goes through stages.
Yeah.
So you started going through all these different stages.
What it did is it swept kicked me. I just fell apart.
Right.
But here's the thing, raised on anime, like I've seen, you know, like the superhero and he's down underneath and, you know, like anime gets melodramatic. You like literally have to escape the bowels of hell, you know, you gotta cut off your own arm to fashion it into a sword, right? Like, you know, anime is so melodramatic about emo bullshit. And to be honest, I came to this place where I was like, I'm a mature person, I'm over anime, I just need to blah, blah. Right, like I came to this very gray space where I was like, I guess I just have to grow up and deal with pain for the rest of my life. But almost like 20 years of this brightly colored existence that I engaged in, it was just like, I'm sorry, you're cooler than that. Like all of your heroes are superheroes. You can overcome this. You just need to know what you want. So I started the process of journaling, and then journaling turned into comic journaling, and then comic journaling turned into like a self-reinforcing, like I'm like, okay, it's cool. Where my sister is gone turned into the comic in a nutshell.
So was it coming out of you sort of in order, or was it scattered thoughts?
It was. It's the first incarnations of this journal, if you look at the way that it started, it is literally just like me doing the classic therapist recommended, your mental health is on edge. You don't even know where your head is at style. You know, today I'm feeling.
Right, yeah.
Right? Because I had just lost the person who would just check in with me and be like, how are you, girl? How are you, girl? Are you okay? I love you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and me and my sister would talk till my face turned blue. My cell phone died. I got to charge it and call her back and do it all again.
And those people are your lifesavers through life.
They are. I knew she was my pillar, but I didn't quite realize how much. And losing her and the relationship with my partner, who I was with for 15 years before that, all at the same time.
Wow. Because I keep...
Back to back.
Because you're in your 20s, right?
Yes.
So this is a huge chunk of your life.
So just back to back. My high school sweetheart, my sister, and my friend, literally in the same year, right?
Wow.
And I had like, there was a lot of ways in which I had nobody. And all of my people who I used to meaningfully be able to trust, they were just boom, gone, boom. Just boom. Kablooey.
Yeah.
And the friend circle along with it. And I wasn't okay. And I was reaching out to people and they're like, look, you just need to suck it up. And I'm like, no. Somebody has to be on my side. They're like, you just need to suck it up. You need to ball up and deal with it.
I mean, like, even with
Black girl.
even with, you know, I don't know so much in America, but in New Zealand and Australia, you're not really prepared. You know, like in your 20s is probably when you have one person that died.
Also, I love that you mistake me for being in my 20s, but I am actually in my 30s
Oh,
now.
are you?
I'm so flattered. Thank you. I will not say my exact age, but thank you.
Okay, she's in her 30s. Okay, then take all that back.
No. It's good. It's good. Mistake me for 20. You're not the only one. It's wonderful.
But, you know, like, I know when you get into my generation, you're expecting, it doesn't faze you when people die, because it's kind of like when people start dying.
Yeah.
You know, for whatever reason, whether it's bad health or acts of nature or whatever. But to experience that boom, 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 one after the other in countries where, well, we do have a high suicide rate.
Yeah.
We have a phenomenal. You were give us the stats that you were telling me the other day about.
I know that the chest stats have changed, but I think it's for teen and youth suicide. I think we're the top, and if not the top, we're definitely top 3.
Right.
We're not the top for suicide as a whole, but the countries we're compared to, you're like, oh my God, why are we so high?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah. And I'm trying to figure that out too, you know, like, when I was in Australia, there was a very high suicide rate among young Aboriginal people.
Yes.
But then when I looked at what they were going through under the system there in that context, it wasn't surprising me.
No.
So I'm wondering, what is it here? Is it that we've become
I do actually have a theory about this.
Yeah.
I really do.
Give it to me.
So a big one from all the research I've done is it's a sort of perceived wealth disparity. If everyone's suffering together, then actually you don't feel like you're being singled out or you're getting unfair treatment. It's just hard, but you do exactly what people say. You nut up and just get good.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a part of the human experience.
Yeah.
But when you have to do that, but also be perceived right next to somebody who has more than you, that's what tends to drive the mental health. From this is my research. I know it's much more nuanced than this. A therapist will come along and be like, no, and then somebody will argue with them. But from what I've seen, the big thing is that it is perceived like it is a gap in perceived status, and a gap in perceived well-being and needs being met. I think that was a big part of why my mental health fell apart. I was in a better place, and then it slipped. And a lot of the people around me didn't quite understand why I'd gone into such a dark place. And I tried to explain it to them, but you can say my sister passed away. That's hollow and dry. Yeah. Taking you through the day-to-day of my life at that point, it would sound like hell. And I had context in my heart for how it used to be, where I had this long-term partner and all of these career goals that were going really well, and my sister would check in on me and my friends, and right?
And that was part of your mental structure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then it fell apart, and then there was not a heck of a ton of sympathy for it. And I was like, I thought y'all loved me. What the hell? Yeah. Right? And when it all sort of shifted, that was the big thing. I think if I had started there in that rough place, I could have dealt with it. But to have it all shift in one go, nah. But I think the thing is that mental health here is not mental health struggles and issues. I think both in the Black community and in New Zealand in general, they're just not taken seriously.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question to you. What do you think are the support for PTSD in particular?
Bullshit.
In the Black community in New Zealand.
It's garbage is what I think it is.
And so hard to find people that are actually trained in dealing with that. What I noticed is they will, in the mental health system here, they will immediately diagnose you as being a depressant without taking it any further.
Yeah, no matter what it was. I remember being recommended antidepressants when I went in to get an inhaler when I was just like, look, I'm just grieving my sister. Are you sure you don't want antidepressants? I'm like, for grief? No, I'm going to feel my way through this, which was, so the big thing for me about my creative process with writing this book, I lost my sister and I needed to talk to somebody. And it turned out that I had a speaking relationship with paper and myself on the page.
Right.
So I made time for that, and I pushed my whole schedule aside, and I told, look, everybody, y'all get fucked, because you are not helping me out here.
Yeah.
And if you're not helping me out in this time, in this point in history, I am diabetic. At that point, I am literally 70 kilograms heavier than I am right now.
Yeah.
My health is failing, and I literally can't even trust people enough to begin to open up.
No.
So
when black people in general, black identifying people in general, are not very sympathetic to mental health. No. And they see it as a weakness.
Oh, but I had it worse because, and
it
I'm
becomes
like,
the struggle Olympics.
Right, the struggle Olympics. I'm like, okay, cool, but here cool, you ate a nastier orange once, but I literally have it in my mouth in this exact moment. Can you at least sympathize? But no.
Yeah. Or can you take the attention just off yourself for a minute, because I actually need you to focus on me, right?
The place I came to is like, either you get me taking care of you and you taking care of me, or I don't give a shit about you and you don't give a shit about me. And I'm not going to do the thing where you're looking after you and I'm looking after you and you ain't looking after me. And that's the only equation I didn't care for.
Yeah.
If it's every man for himself, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
If it's us looking after each other, I'm down with that. If it's me looking after your ass and also not being able to look after my own while you do not give a shit about me, I'm not down with that. So I did that thing. I did the thing that some people do, where I cut and I cut. And what became my priority was my physical health.
Yeah.
Where now I'm down 70 kilograms.
That's amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're a real inspiration for that. You're a huge inspiration to me, because I am a diabetic as well.
Yeah.
So I know what that's all about, and controlling, and I love the way that you've gotten into the keto, because
and powerlifting is the other thing. Like
powerlifting,
steady state cardio, keto, powerlifting. And when it comes to keto, like decent amount of vegetables, your healthy greens with low carbohydrates, and as much as I can have. I don't even care about the carbohydrate content if it's from a green.
Did your doctor prescribe you vitamin D?
My doctor prescribed me pasta. They don't know they did not know what they were doing. Look, I love y'all, but no.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of African women are now on vitamin D down here because we don't get enough sun. We need the sun.
I did a lot of research, but the net thing was that I put my health first. I researched, I did the big thing for me that I would even recommend to anyone was what they call the elimination diet. Keto works for me, but it doesn't work for everyone. Some people need to actually have their carbohydrates and be on a cal cut. That was not me, but it is some other people. And so there's a thing called an elimination diet, where you just try to take everything out except for what you know you can metabolize, and you add things in one at a time. And I found there was a whole bunch of shit I couldn't have, but the correlation was, generally speaking, carbohydrates.
And you've left dairy alone.
Oh yeah. I do cheeses, but like kind of only cheeses. Like I'm like, no, real fine cheese, and I'm on it. But like I don't drink milk, and I avoid yogurt. Probiotics sometimes. But the other thing, and the reason where this book came from was I prioritized my mental health. Now, I lost a lot of friendships and a lot of relationships in doing so. And I did actually start to look at reciprocation and, like if it was give and take, or and more importantly, if I even had this rule from beforehand, but it just became an ironclad rule, which is, if when I leave your presence, I'm left feeling worse, not better. Right. And not in a self-growth kind of way. I just feel drained. Yep. I don't even care why. I don't care if we had a wonderful time and I leave and I'm just feeling that kind of weird droopy. I cannot have you in my life.
Energy vampires.
And that it's not everybody means to be. Sometimes it's just incompatibility. Yeah. Sometimes they're doing their best and they love you. But if you just leave their company and you were just left feeling like shit.
Yeah.
You can't be there.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
It's sometimes you're wasting their time too, because if you're not getting something good out of it, somebody else could be. So just remove yourself from that space. And that was really big for me, because suddenly I did have all the energy to do all of the work I needed to. And I had the energy to talk to myself and work my way through it. And I have done a lot of that personal reflection, which is painful to have to do.
Yeah.
And I definitely lost a lot of friendships I used to think were like core to me.
Right.
But on the other side of it, I'm not like grinding my teeth in my sleep anymore. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not like chewing my hands till like I'm down to the knuckles.
When was it that you realized that this isn't depression? This is actually something else. This is PTSD.
So the big one was I didn't have any words for it initially because I was not versed in this. I just knew, I came to a point where I was just like, you are not okay. And I think the big one for me is that, I literally get on Google and I'm feeling lost and I'm like, what should I be doing? What is the best use of my time? They're like,
Talk to me, Google. Talk to me.
Dear Dr. Google, what should I? But, Dr. Google has some good ideas back then. It really, they were like, the most important thing you should be prioritizing in your life is exercise and meditation. I was like, okay, all right, Dr. Google, I'm going to prioritize that. And so, you go through all of these exercises and you're YouTubing how to do yoga, how do I do my asanas properly? But the big one was the big one. The big shift for me is I'm on my chair in my house in Johnsonville at the time. And they're like, move your consciousness through your body. Start at the top.
Oh, the meditation tapes, yeah.
Like, start at the top and really feel how you're feeling. And it was like the first time I had slowed down enough to see that everything inside of me hurt and everything was on fire. There wasn't a thought or a feeling or a part of my body that was not in pain. And I was just like, what the hell is this? Depression is when everything's okay and you're still sad.
Yeah.
Depression is when there's nothing wrong and you're still sad. It's normal. You are sure that everything's all right. You really are. By no metric are you off ball.
Yeah.
But you're still sad, then it's probably chemical.
Yeah.
For me, I couldn't think of a single thing that was right.
Yeah. And also, with PTSD, I think you carry it in your body.
You do.
Intentions.
There's a wonderful book called The Body Keeps the Score. And when I had read through that one, that was the beginning of my, oh shit, this has got my number all the way through it. So I get to the bottom of my body and I'm just like, everything. That was when I was okay with saying, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And that was the start of that journey. I wasn't depressed. Nothing was okay. I did have depression. It was because nothing was okay. Nothing. So I start working through it, like one page at a time. Okay, if nothing's okay, what's nothing? What's everything?
Yeah.
The creative process for that book, which is the original question, I used to work at Toi Poniki. And I did so for years.
Toi Poniki.
Toi Poniki's right up the road from where we are here.
Oh, the movie?
No. Toi Poniki is the big art center where it used to say, I will be noticed one day in like big block letters.
I think I know.
Abel Smith Street. All right?
Yep.
And I used to work there. I the first time I moved in was like 2010. And then I was working there on and off. But I had a studio space there. I would go in the morning, which was a part of my exercise routine. I would literally walk from Johnsonville to Toi Poniki, which takes like 2 hours.
Wow.
But you better believe I was going to lose the weight.
Yeah.
So I'm walking to Toi Poniki. I would sit down and I would just start typing whatever was in my head. Eventually I would start journaling. I'd probably paint something as well at some point through the day.
Yeah.
I'd make my own lunches. And then I'd come home. And the physical process of making that book was in there. It was just the exodus of all of that confusion and pain and trying to get a beat on where it was coming from.
So it was kind of like, from what it sounds like, it was kind of like you were wading through stuff until you could see, okay, this is what's going on here.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, now I can write about it. Now it makes sense.
There was so much internal resistance. Huge parts of my brain did not ever want me to look at it. You know, things from my past where I was like, I didn't want to know that this had happened to me. I didn't want to know that this had hurt me this way. Like once I had gotten through the what had happened in the immediate future, the question was, how did I get here? And then that started me traveling backwards. And it was painful.
I think that we need to have more discussions about mental health on this show. I'm here. I know that for young people, anxiety and
all-time high.
Yeah, all-time high. And I'm like, where are all these anxious people coming from? What's making them so anxious?
Money, global catastrophe, relationships, the changing dynamics, lack of structure, lack of future.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And nobody's giving them any structure, and the structure that was there doesn't work. And that's the one thing we all agree on, is that the way it was isn't any good. But we don't know what to do with it moving forward.
So I'm going to give you one last question, and I want you to answer it in under 1 minute.
Problem can do.
What's your opinion of the mental health system support as it pertains to Black, Caribbean, African people in New Zealand right at this moment, and what will we have to do things differently?
Well, step one, I think that New Zealand is trying. I think that it not necessarily is doing the best, but I do actually see movements and pushes, and it is trying. And for that, I thank it. I have, I myself have struggled with mental health, but I think that what we need to moving forward is a more nuanced understanding of each individual problem, so that we can get a map of what's going wrong. Yeah. And I do actually think, in terms of how to move forward, I don't know if you heard about, was it Kubler's hierarchy of needs? But
I have, but I don't really know what it is.
Okay, little pyramid of needs. Literally, people just need to start approaching it from: do you have a house, a roof over your head? You don't have anxiety. You don't have a roof.
Yeah,
it's not that you have anxiety. You don't have a roof over your head or a promise of food.
Yeah,
and that I feel like even people within themselves, myself included at the time, didn't have a sense of how much my insecurity and my sense of loss was just not being able to even think about prioritizing my physical needs.
Yeah.
And then everything above there, from what you need to focus on is literally being able to check in with people to say, do you have food? Do you have shelter?
Yeah, the basics.
And not I'm going to give you $90 a week to fucking sort that. No, that doesn't work. They need to be able to have access to food and shelter. And then safety and security. Is something going on in your life that is threatening your safety? Probably. If you're Black, probably. Something's going on. Do you have a sense of your own direction and career? And it's all that kind of stuff that I think that is really needed.
Well, I think that I'd like to have you come back to the show. What do you reckon?
I reckon I could do that.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I think that there's a whole lot of stuff we can dig up, and this conversation shouldn't be the end of the conversation. We just got to keep having it. Whenever you're free, we're just going to get back in here and yarn, I reckon. So that's us for the Blackhouse for this week. We're going to go out with Your Fussle, and this is just one of my favourites. It's called Buckle Up. Your Fussle's from Australia. He's originally from Ghana, and he's just got some of the best beats coming out of Oz at the moment that I particularly like, so I'm just going to play this.
Oh, yeah?
I'm just going to play it. All right, this is Your Fussle. Who's that?
Buckle up, baby. Let's go somewhere more comfortable. Baby. Steady up, baby. There's nothing but love right under you, baby. Yeah. I'm working. You're my darling. Come and steer the ship with me, 'cause I'ma need your company. Oh, I'm working. You're my darling. Come and steer the ship.
That program was brought to you by Wellington Access Radio. Get your voice heard.
Thanks New Zealand On Air for funding accessmedia.nz.